As entrepreneurs, we all have a reason why we chose to leave our 9 to 5 for an 8 a.m. to 10 p.m. I'm here to capture those stories of why we all hustle and grind for our companies. Kyle Coon is a Paralympian, professional speaker, author, podcaster, and certified guide. Losing his sight at 6 to retinoblastoma, he was inspired by blind athlete Erik Weihenmayer to pursue adventure. Kyle became a rock climber, skier, wrestler, and endurance athlete. A University of Central Florida graduate in communication, he faced job struggles and unhealthy habits before embracing running and triathlon. Now a professional parathlete for Team USA, he competed in the 2020 Paralympics and is set for the 2024 Games in Paris. Based in Colorado Springs, Kyle speaks on values, vision, and high-performance mindset. So, Kyle, thank you so much for being on the show with me today. I really appreciate it. You have an amazing story. And, while I'm reading through your bio and I'm reading through kind of what you've done, it really is an absolutely amazing story. And so what I'd like to do, I kind of want you to just briefly go through kind of what your background is. So you're a blind Paralympian. So I'll start with that. And kind of, what do let's just, go through your background if you would. Kind of bring people up to speed a little bit.
Woo, man. All right, children, gather around the fire. It is story time.
Exactly.
Okay, so we'll just do a quick 30,000 foot view. So I lost my sight when I was 6 years old due to eye cancer, and so I had my left eye removed when I was 5 and my right eye when I was 6, and was very fortunate to meet a professional blind adventure athlete very shortly after I lost my sight. And he, his name is Erik Weihenmayer, very, now very well known, respected mountaineer, adventure athlete, became very famous for, climbing the 7 summits, Mount Everest among those, and doing a whole bunch of other stuff. But at the time that I met him, he was kind of making his way up in the world. And I had not met an adult blind person before, and he he basically challenged me, as this little 7-year-old kid. He was like, "Hey, just because you are blind doesn't mean you can't live an amazing life, and you can't do some really cool things." So he challenged me to try rock climbing, and I went on and did that competitively. My sisters and I were all part of a competitive rock climbing team for several years, and that, of course, spun off into a variety of adventure sports, from camping and hiking and cycling and downhill skiing and all that kind of stuff. And, and I just kept pursuing this life of adventure from one thing to the next. And, eventually found my way to, through college, and graduated from college, and just thought I was, really hot stuff. And then entered the real world.
Yeah. And that transition was really difficult for you, that transition to the real world. What was the most difficult part about that transition? Because I know you had a lot of difficulty with it.
Yeah. So, the transition from college to the real world, look, I grew up in the era of, social media was exploding. We had these big entrepreneurs, we had these, tech entrepreneurs, people that were, didn't finish college, and everyone is, saying, oh, like anyone can be a CEO, like all this different stuff. And so I, of course, swallowed it all hook, line, and sinker. Yeah. And when I was, I graduated from college when I was 21, and I thought I was hot shit. Just being frank, at the time I had already climbed Mount Kilimanjaro. I had done some climbing and hiking around the world. I had been on, national television. I had, stood on stages speaking. I'd spoken to, some big time audiences and companies and stuff. So I thought I was hot stuff. And so I went into the world saying, what, I'm just going to apply for every job, CEO and above. And then just started climbing my way down the corporate ladder from there. And so eventually I looked up, and a year had gone by. I'm 25, 30 pounds overweight. I'm, mentally and physically just in a very bad place. I was drinking a lot. And I was just in a shell of myself, of who I thought I had the potential to be. And so I, walked into a grocery store, applied to be a bag boy, and didn't get the job. And so, when you're denied, that that
Hmm.
kind of job, you're kind of at rock bottom, and you're like, man, like, what do I do? And so, for me, what I decided to do was, number one, I said, I gotta get my physical mind and my body back into shape. And so I decided to start by doing the one thing that I had always hated, which was running. And so I decided that I was going to take up running because, well, primarily it was the only thing that I didn't really cost any money because I had no money to
Uh-huh.
do
Uh-huh.
anything. So found my way. So just started running, and the guy that I started running with, who was guiding me, um, happened to be a triathlete, and he basically, told me running is dumb. You should do triathlon.
Oh.
So it was like, why run when you can swim and bike before it?
Exactly,
So,
right?
you know,
It's sort of like, TEDxing running. All different.
exactly.
So now I 100% can see the fact that you thought you were hot stuff after this, after college, because I mean, you climbed Mount Kilimanjaro before you were 21, and that is an amazing accomplishment. So I could see where that happened. But now I can also see where it's very difficult to get yourself out of that position
Yeah.
where you're overweight, you feel like you suck. And that depression is probably a large part of it. That's where, the alcohol came in.
Hmm.
I know that running really helped you to get out of that, but what was that exact transition like? So what was that one moment where it's like, look, I can't deal with this anymore. I just have to do this. It's gonna suck, but I can't keep going downhill like this. What does that look? Because I think a lot of people have trouble with that transition where they're so far into depression and they're so far in that world, and that getting out is a monumental task, probably harder than climbing Mount Kilimanjaro. What was really that moment where you're just like, something's got to change?
For me, a large part of it was like when I walked into that grocery store, and they were like, no, like you're not good enough to be a bag boy. For me, that was a, I was like, man, like what have I done with myself? Am I that am I presenting myself in that bad a light
Mhm.
that no one, like, you know, and nothing against grocery store,
Mhm.
baggers.
Yeah.
But, it's, I was college educated. I had gone to, I had gone to prestigious academic high school. I wasn't a dumb person.
Mhm.
But, for me, I eventually just asked myself, I was like, what's worse? Um, you know, Working to get out of this hole that I've dug myself, or, essentially just keep digging myself deeper and deeper and deeper, until, until I'm just, until I'm dead. Because
Yeah.
that was the road I was going down. So
Mhm.
what's better, to try and fight my way back to living, or, fight my way to, or just keep sinking until I'm dead. And that
Mhm.
was essentially what was going to happen. And I do not like, I'm not a passive person. Like, I don't like things happening to me. I like to make things happen. And
Mhm.
so the act of pursuing something, appealed to me a lot more. And so, running was, at the end of the day, running was really simple. Put one foot in front of the other, do it a little bit faster every day.
Mhm.
And it was something very simple, and it just took hard work. It took, and it was a grind. It
Mhm.
was a grind. And I had to ultimately make a decision. Is that grind going to, help me down the road, or is it, because I was grinding in the other direction too. So
Mhm.
which direction would I rather grind toward death or grind toward life?
Yeah.
And I chose grinding toward life.
Yeah. Exactly. And I think, yeah, I wanted you to tell that experience because I'm hoping it resonates with somebody who is in that situation where they're in that really bad suck. Just that where,
Yeah.
depression's taken over, they're just in a really poor place and they need to hear you can get over this. Here's how I did it. I try to get those stories as much as I can because I think they're incredibly powerful. And I think as guys, if we lose our purpose, we turn into a hot mess. And I think that's kind of what happened is you had this purpose up for a while. And please correct me if I'm wrong, but it's like you had this purpose up for a while and then there really wasn't a purpose beyond that. Now it's now, then you found that again in running. It was sort of this thing that keeps you going and that keeps pushing you and
Yeah,
goes from there, right?
absolutely. No, like, you when you don't feel like you have a purpose, and then like you find just a glimmer of hope, just a glimmer of hope, a glimmer of purpose. It's like, okay, like even if this purpose is just for, shedding a couple pounds here or there, it's something. I'm working toward a goal. I'm working toward a vision of just getting myself a little bit healthier and happier, and climbing my way out of this hole that I've put myself in. So yeah, it's all about just, where do you want to go, and how are you going to get there?
So I want to talk a little bit about the Paralympics because you told me something. We were talking in the green room beforehand about the Paralympics. So, and I told you my, in full transparency, I know it has existed for a long time, and that's about as much as I know. And I know it's similar to the Olympics, and that's about as much as I know. And I think a lot of people might be in that situation where they may not know about the Paralympics. But you said something. I asked you, was it well attended? And
Mhm.
you said something really interesting that I didn't think about. What did you say about that?
Yeah, so the Paralympic Games is one of the, regularly it is one of the five most viewed sporting events in the world.
Hmm.
So you got the soccer, the football World Cup, soccer, whatever we're calling it these days. You've got the Olympic Games, you've got the Tour de France. And then right up there with it is the Paralympic Games, and the Paralympic Games, you know, it is the Olympic Games essentially.
Mhm.
Um,
Yeah.
you know, quite frankly, it's the Olympic Games, but you have to have a medically verified disability to be able to take part in it. And it is an extremely competitive event. We have, at this year's in the 2024 Paralympic Games, I think we have like 22 or 23 sports that'll
Oh,
be,
wow.
you know, competing. Everything from, a lot of it is the same exact sports you're going to see in the Olympic Games.
Hmm.
So you know, you've got you've got track and field events. Everything from 100 meter, 400 meter, 800 meter, mile, 5K. You have the marathon. You also have got a bunch of different swimming events. You've got the sport that I compete in, para triathlon. So swim, bike, run. You've got
Mhm.
cycling events. You've got wheelchair basketball. You have wheelchair rugby.
Mhm.
All these different sporting events, and they're all extremely competitive, and they are very well attended, and it's a very big deal,
Yeah.
in across the world to be able to represent your country and compete on that global stage.
And I think you said something really interesting there where it's basically the same events that happen in the Olympics, but these are folks doing it with a disability. And I think there's just something that is amazing about that because you have Olympian or Paralympians who have overcome something huge and are now performing at an Olympic level with a disability. And I think there's something that is amazingly courageous and just it's taking the Olympics to another level. That's I think what it is,
Yeah.
and at least for me, I have the utmost in respect for people that have the ability to do that, to overcome. So I've got a huge respect for you folks, and I was really happy to hear that it is well attended because, I was thinking something different, and I'm happy to hear that that it gets that much attention because I believe it should. Just my opinion, I think it really should.
Yeah,
So,
I mean, look, to be fair, like it is well attended, but
yeah.
and it's well viewed. You know, NBC has done a big part in that and stepping up their coverage of the Paralympic Games. Channel 4 over in the UK is kind of the gold standard of coverage for Paralympic sport.
Huh.
So like, media has done a great job, but we're still we still have a long way to go.
Mhm.
Because like you said, we do, there are some really amazing, incredible athletes with incredible stories. Just that can showcase their talent on the field of play. And
Mhm.
when you hear some of the stories of, I'm quite a boring story compared to some of my teammates.
Uh-huh.
um, so like, the athletes that compete at the Paralympic Games are quite incredible. And we really do, as Paralympians and Paralympic hopefuls, and athletes who represent their countries on these global stages. Look, we do hustle and grind. It is there is no such thing as work-life balance. It is,
Yeah.
it's life.
Yeah. Yep.
This is your life, and you learn to live it, and it's exciting, but it is a grind at times. So, but
Yeah.
it's we love it.
Nice. Awesome, man. And so we're going to see you at the Paralympics here in a couple of months. They're in Paris this year, right?
Yep.
Yep. Cool. Awesome. And how many people are competing in your sport? I'm just curious. Just curious thing.
Yeah. So my sport, of paratriathlon is, not gonna lie, it's a very difficult sport.
Mhm.
You're juggling swimming, biking, and running. So, we train probably, anywhere from 20 to 30 hours a week, in those disciplines.
Mhm.
And, and the equipment involved in the sport of triathlon is very expensive. Like, I spent, I think, $25,000 on a new bike,
Wow.
last year.
Wow.
Um, and then you're flying around to travel around. So
Yeah.
our sport is, you know, and so our sport, I don't know the exact numbers. I think there's like 60 or 70 blind and visually impaired athletes in the world that compete at the world triathlon level, and then they only take. I think they're taking 12 of us to the Paralympic Games. So like, you have to be top 10, 15% in the world to be going to the Paralympic Games. And so, and plus we're racing with our guides and all that. So it'll be it'll look like a small field when we're actually out there on the course.
Mhm.
Um, but you know it's quite the intense spectacle. So
I I can imagine, and especially since it is a sport or an event where you would have to have a guide as well.
yeah.
Do your guides train with you, or are they also like Olympic level athletes, or
Oh yeah, yeah,
okay?
yeah. No, we've
Okay.
gotten to a point. We've gotten to a point where, all of the guides for those of us that compete at the Paralympic level,
Mhm.
they could, they could compete at the Olympics, or compete as professional triathletes,
Huh.
in their own right. Most of them have either competed at the Olympic Games in the past, or have very have flourishing Ironman, triathlon careers. So yeah, no, the guides that we race with are also just stupendous athletes.
Mhm.
So yeah, and like I said, that's just on the visually impaired side of things. We've
Mhm.
got, I think there's 11 sport classes that are going to be competing in paratriathlon. So we're going to have over 120, like 140 athletes competing across the entire spectrum of various disabilities for paratriathlon in Paris.
Interesting. Yeah, I was always curious about that. Like, how would you navigate that world? How would you navigate those things, literally and figuratively?
Yeah,
Yeah, that's interesting, huh? Um, cool. I'm one of those people. I like to ask the questions, just because I want to hear more.
sure.
I want to know
Absolutely.
more information.
Absolutely.
Cool. So let's pivot for a little bit. And in 2021, you released a book. Tell us a little bit about the book and what's in it.
Yeah, so my book is Discovering a Life Without Limits: How Cancer Took My Sight, Blindness Gave Me Vision, and the Mountains Let Me Live. And it really it's my memoir essentially, but it lays out the basics of, look, this is my story, and this is how I discovered how to live a life of purpose, live a life without limits, and how to push those limits and expand beyond them. And so, like, I share my story of dealing with cancer,
Mhm.
of growing up, becoming a competitive rock climber, going out and getting into the various adventures that that I got into, from hiking and climbing in Peru, to doing climbing Kilimanjaro, to being a high school and college wrestler, um, and then also my struggles with finding employment immediately after college. And so the book actually ends with me starting to dip my toe into triathlon. And so my plan will be to release my second book in the next couple of years, actually detailing my triathlon career, and sharing the lessons that I've learned, in that I learned as growing up, how how to discover living a life without limits, and how I actually applied those lessons to live my life without limits.
Interesting. I love it. I love it. We'll put a link to your book in the description so people can download it and go and buy it so they have it.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So the other thing is, and this is something I've never heard of, and I thought I'd heard of just about all of the different certifications that are out there, but you're in an exactly what to say certified guide. And what, so we hear about NLP, there's a lot of things out there. What specifically is an exactly what you say certified guide?
Yeah. So exactly what to say was initially a book written by a gentleman named Phil M. Jones. He's you know professional sales trainer, and has built this you know quite a quite a network of he's trained over 2 or 3 million people. I think he's sold, like, over, I think he's getting close to 4 million copies of his book sold, and all that. And so what he found over the course of his career was that the people in that really get ahead and achieve what they want to achieve in business and life, they know exactly what to say, when to say it, and how to make it count. And you know, and he basically, he took some magic words and phrases that speak to the subconscious brain, and he put all these into a book. And it's a very short book. It takes about 72 minutes to read, and it's quite profound, and it's just very simple stuff.
Mhm.
And But what he found was that he was getting so many requests to deliver talks and presentations and trainings and all that on this exactly what to say methodology, that he said, look, I can't do it all. And
Uh-huh.
so he built this business, exactly what to say. And he brought in a handful of us, and I think there's only like 40 of us in the world right now that are exactly what to say certified guides. And so what we do is we help people elevate their conversational excellence. So we help people change their words so that they can help change their world. It's because the words that we use do matter. We all know that actions speak louder than words, but, well, those two things go hand in hand together. Like, we need our words to propel action. We need action to back up the words we use. And if we can change our words very slightly, if and we can use our words to elevate our conversations, we can you know help influence people, and help people achieve the success that they want to achieve. And so as an exactly what to say certified guide, I work with companies, I work with organizations, on just shifting their perspectives a little bit, in being very intentional about their word choices, using some cornerstones of conversational excellence, and then teaching some some frameworks around conversation so that we can make every conversation count rather than just counting up the number of conversations we have.
I like that. Make every conversation count versus just counting up the number of conversations we have. That is profound. I love that.
Exactly.
Man. Yeah. So we're getting towards the end of things. Thank you so much for being on. It's been a huge honor. You're also the first Paralympian that I've had on the show too. So
it's an honor. Thank you.
I do appreciate it. I do appreciate that a lot. But there is one more question I ask every single guest I have on the podcast. And that is, what is one book or podcast that has had a significant impact on your life?
Oh man, this is such an awesome question because there's so many.
Mm-hmm.
And it's really, really hard to choose for me. But if I had to, there's a couple that I would have to pick, honestly.
Mm-hmm.
The first one is Touch the Top of the World by my friend and mentor, Erik Weihenmayer. And just any he's written now I think 3 or 4 best-selling books that detail his life and journey and all the lessons that he's learned. But that was Touch the Top of the World was his first book. But the other book or series of books that I would say would be basically any book written by Admiral William H. McRaven. So whether that be his book Make Your Bed, The Hero Code, or The Wisdom of the Bullfrog, all 3 of those books, again, very very short, very profound. And then of course the third one is Exactly What to Say by Phil M. Jones, because without when I picked up that book and read it for the first time, it hit me that I was like, wow, maybe if I make some changes in my conversation, maybe some more opportunities will open up for me in life. And, if I had known this stuff back in, 2013, 2014, maybe I wouldn't have been denied a grocery store bag boy job. Maybe, and so over the last, 5-6 years, being able to implement the Exactly What to Say methodology and the work that, from that short little book, has really changed my life. So I can't pick one of, I can't pick one of those, because all of them have had such a profound impact on my life. And just, and don't even get me started on all the podcasts, because my podcast feed is overflowing. And if we started going down that road, we'd still be here. And the rest of your guests today that you have scheduled would be very mad at me.
Bump them all. Well, thank you so much for bringing a lot of wisdom today. I really appreciate your story is amazing. And I'm hoping that by hearing this story, people are going to realize no matter what comes in your world, you're going to figure out a way to make it work. And you have the ability to do this. So thank you so much for spreading that to the world. I appreciate it.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Andrew. Really appreciate your time today.
Thanks again for joining us on the Hustle and Grind podcast. If you'd like to learn more about Kyle, check out the link in the description.